Hey, Composer Gloves here, and this is the 54th video in the Kontakt from the Ground Up tutorial series. And today we will be talking about how to use the modulation. So this is the in-depth version of the mod tabs right here, and what they do, exactly what they do actually. And we're going to get into them because you have to know that before we start talking about the modulators, LFOs, and envelopes and stuff. And we're going to even use a bit of massive to set this up. And it's actually really nice having open VSTs that, just really familiar with. Besides Kontakt, of course, because I've just talked myself to death about this engine. So yeah, so here's what it does. So we know that modulators allow us to control behavior of a signal, okay? And that's actually mostly reserved for these types of guys. But these modulator tabs right here are sort of the go-between guys to make our envelopes work. So if you have like all your stuff open and you're like working with things and you want to get back and forth between your mods, your modulation targets fast, you can click down and it will take you down to where your modulation source is. We're going to talk about that. And you can click back up when you're done, and it'll, well, in this case, it just highlights it for us. It says, hey, there, it's right there. You moron. Just go look up there. So another quick note is modulation targets, if you want to target parameters, only work on the group level. They do not work on the send effects, insert effects, or instrument bus effects. The reason is, like, if we add a filter and and then we try and use a modulation on it, it won't work. You can MIDI CC control it, which we've talked about in the past. At least I hope so. If not, you can just drag on a MIDI assignment to it, and it'll allow you to control it in your DAW wherever it lists the automation and the host parameter. That's we refer to FL Studios in this scenario. Anyways, so our modulation envelope is currently targeting the volume, and the way we know it works on our group effects is because amplifier and EP are all group relative, and you know all about groups and stuff because you watch the other tutorials. And if we right click, whoa, what's this? We have this whole extra menu here, and guess what it's all referencing? LFOs, envelopes, other. Whoa, envelopes, LFOs, other. That's right, modulation sources. Dun dun dun. So right now we have our envelope and it's targeted. So this is the modulation itself. So we're using an envelope, and it's specifically an DSR. We'll talk about that envelope, and it is targeting the volume. So the way our envelope is, so our envelope's right here, down here, and it's even labeled volume, and that's what it's controlling. Very handy dandy. And we're not going to talk about this currently, but it actually has. And now this is controlling that. This tells these controls here tell it how to interpret it controlling the volume. I hope that made sense. That was a mouthful. So you can right click to create one, and you can set it up to be controlled by an LFO, an envelope, existing. So something that's already there. So you can use the same modulation source to control multiple parameters. Or you can even learn the MIDI CC automation continuous controller if you have like a knob or something. You can also set up it to be controlled by an external source. So if you've got something like, maybe you got an EQ and you want a one-band EQ and you want the gain, the attenuation and boost to be controlled by your velocity, you can right-click, go to external sources, and boom, there it is. Velocity. You could have key position, you could have release velocity, so how hard you let go of the key. That's a weird thing to think about. And you can just link it to pretty much knobs, controllers, pitch bend. Now poly aftertouch and mono aftertouch respond the same way you would expect it to do in the effects, meaning if you aftertouch is when you push a key and you're able to wiggle your key and it produces an effect on your keyboard, in case you don't know what that is. And that's for like people with lots of money who can afford keyboards like that. Or if they give them to people like me because they think that that I'm worth it. I always appreciate that because I don't have one right now. So anyways, you push the key and it wiggles, and mono aftertouch will take the envelope, in this case, if we were to use an envelope, and it will only send out one signal, one envelope signal to control it. But if we turned it to poly aftertouch, it would send out separate envelope controllers for your notes. And now that could drive up CPU as well. Probably not that much though. These are pretty small processing units. And so that's ways you can link them together. So let's just create a envelope, or let's do an LFO, a sine wave LFO, and we click it and bang, it creates a sine wave LFO modulator. So now our gain it'll be boost and cut 18 decibels according to our LFO. So if we were to play some notes, oh, this is actually a kick drum, so this may not be, we're gonna need a fast LFO. So let's go down and let's click this arrow. Boom, here's our LFO. And if we turn the frequency up, it'll speed up. We'll talk about this later. And we'll actually see, we won't see the graph move, but we'll see the gain light just go nuts. So if we hit some notes now, so you see it going back and forth. And so it is doing its job. Now, we're gonna talk about this button right here and what it does and what this button does in a little bit. The real important one is this fader, because what this fader does is it controls, it's basically a wet dry. So it's like so the gain will go up and down less. It'll modulate back and forth less if we have less on. So it gives less control over how far this parameter can modulate this gain. So you see it barely moves. But if we tell it have full control, go all the way to the minimum and maximum value, this thing can move the gain all the way back and forth. So it's a much more dramatic effect. So just so you know, that is how that works, and it's very important. Now you have this lag setting right here. This lag setting is referring to, it's basically creating a buffer. So if you're getting clicks and pops and like, you know, stuff like that, that's my R2D2. Actually, you know what? R2D2 sounds nothing like that. That's my bat call. If I ever need to talk to Batman, that's the call I use, even though I know bats screech. Never mind. So this creates a lag between it. So a processing period and hopefully it'll go, you don't have to set this very high so that there's not too much of a lag between your signal and your sound. That way it's your LFO or whatever takes effect immediately. Usually though, it's not a problem. You can double click to type in a value as well instead of dragging. And I believe control click, nope, alt click, nope, you have to double click. No way to reset it any other way. And then you have the target. So this LFO is controlling what? And you can, because we associated this LFO with the one band, it's directly below it. Whenever there's a mod directly below something, that means that you are targeting the thing above it. And you could control, in this case, the bandwidth, the frequency, and the gain. So we could change the frequency, turn our gain up a lot, and now to move our frequency back and forth really fast. And it kind of sounds like a squirrel farting. So that is what that is. Now we have some other options. I'm going to go over to a more tonal sample because this is not a good sound to be using. So let's go to a string ensemble. Woohoo! And we have an amplifier set up right here. And it's got a modulator, an envelope. And it's actually got some velocity and MIDI CC. So these have already been set up to respond to external controllers by default. This may be something you may want to incorporate into your sample libraries. So let's add a flow pass. And let's target that with an LFO like we did before. And let's give it full range, so complete range over the frequency spectrum. Let's open up our modulator. Here's our cutoff. It's labeled for us. And let's turn the frequency up and hit something. So that's what it sounds like. We can actually bypass it. We have bypass options here too. So we can bypass stuff and without it, or we can turn it on. Now it's bypassing the modulation. It's not bypassing the cutoff. So if we bypass that. Anyways, all right, so we've got this working. And if we hit this graph right here, so just so you know, there's 127 velocity envelopes. Just for your information, if you're wondering why do one do 127 with the exact, there's 127 velocity envelopes. I'm not sure for the technical reason for this because there's 88 keys on a piano. So I don't know, but that's the way it is. Maybe it has something to do with bits and programming or something like that. So, right, this is a graph, and the bottom of this graph represents off. The top of this graph represents on, okay? So if we create a point, which you may need to go to a preset just to load something up. So go to a preset, go to default. There's no bypass on this preset. It's like blowing my mind right now. And you get these points. You can right click to add more points. I'm not sure how to add your first initial point any other way. And it's also got a bevel curve, so you can control the curve. And so these points, So right now we have a linear setup. And what happens is when we hit a note, our LFO is going to start in the middle and go this way. So on and then go off. And you see it's like right now it's going nuts because we have our LFOs so fast. So let's turn it down. And you see it goes and it's going off. And it's controlling this. Woo! It's like a Ferris wheel of sickness. So if we were to right click and add a point, let's say we want to do something like get way crazy, man. Let's do something like this jazz. And then we'll keep this to do that. So let's play a note now. So you see, you get some interesting effects going on here. So you can tell it how to be interpreted via this table, and you can invert it. So inversion is an important principle. Boom, you click that, turns yellow. What the heck? You just, little do you know, you just committed treason, and I'm telling the cops. So what this just did is it took our on and it made it the 0 value, and our off and made it the top value. So now this will be on and this will be off. So when we play our note, turns off, turns on, other way around, turns off. And that's what invert does. You may want that, you may not want that. Yeah, I mean, you never know. So then you have this table option. This gives you, I believe there's actually 128 bars, so one more than 27. There may just be 127. I haven't counted. And it's interesting how they did this because some of the bars are thinner than other bars. And I wonder if these are octaves or if they carry some sort of significance. Oh, and I did not know you could do that. That is cool. So essentially these are different levels. So right now, all the way up is on and all the way down is off. And you can, so if we wanted to, you can right click and drag and it will sculpt it to your curve. That is outrageously cool. Or you can just click and draw. So boom, 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 boom. So right now these are off. And you can hear it working. And you can create some really outlandish effects here. Or you can invert it. And it does the exact same thing. And so off is, well, yeah, you get the drift. So, yeah, so you can just draw curves in like that. So you can do really weird stuff like this. So the higher the value up, it turns off. And that's pretty much it. So you can control the targets. You could use external sources to control things. That's the table. You switch between it using table. And that is pretty much everything. They have some automatic... Oh, I guess you could invert it doing that too. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, that's how you do that. If you have any questions about this, drop them in the comments. Subscribe, because I have cool free stuff on my website and all these cool free tutorials that you think are great. Unless you don't like them, then you can go in the comments and just insult me, because that's what people who don't like stuff do. Or you know what? Even better yet, you should go to someone else's video and you should insult them and just let them have it. Tell them how you feel. And that's how you really get, that's, if you want to get back at me, that's how you do it. So yes, I didn't talk about Massive. Wish I had. If you have any questions, again, drop them in the comments, and have a blessed day.